Joining us this morning on Blue Wave TV is Michelle Cerrato. She's the research director and research coordinator at the Roatan Marine Park with the Asexual Coral Reproduction Program, not to be confused with the Sexual Coral Reproduction Program. Welcome to the show. What is asexual coral reproduction? How does that work, and why are we doing it?
Hi, Keith. Thank you for having me today. So like you said, at Roatan Marine Park, we do two different types of coral restoration, sexual and asexual, and I'm in charge of the asexual component of coral restoration. The easiest way to understand this is thinking at it as coral gardening or underwater gardening. So what we do is that we find big, healthy colonies that we can make smaller fragments out of it. And eventually those tiny fragments are going to grow into a bigger colony over time. And then we plant those bigger fragments back into the reef. So that's pretty much how it works. Very, very similar to gardening.
Yeah. So it's an octopus's garden in the sea, as the Beatles would say. How is this program going? How is it working?
It's doing great. Quite new to the team, Roatan Marine Park. I've always been very familiar with their job as a Honduran person that's into science. So I'm very happy to be a part of their team. The program is very, very well received. We have a lot of support from the community, from locals, from tourists, from scuba divers that are just interested in doing something for conservation. So it's been very smooth program to run. We're very, very lucky that we have the support from so many people.
How is the coral doing? Because when I've been diving recently, there's a few places that used to be just so colorful and they're really bleached out. And that's a sign of stress, right?
Yes. So last year we witnessed a coral bleaching event. This was pretty much happening in the whole Mesoamerican reef, so not just Roatan. And it went on for a couple of months. You can still see some coral bleaching. And like you said, it is a stress symptom. So when you see a coral that's bleached, it doesn't mean that it's dead. It's just stress at that moment. So this coral can recover if the conditions like temperature, for example, get a lot better. But if that doesn't happen, the coral can die. So at this point in Roatan, we have witnessed a little bit of both. We've seen a couple of species that have recovered and are doing a lot better. But we also have seen a lot of species that have died at this point.
Which is really sad. There is a lot of information that is being shared by marine biologists around the world. I know the Great Barrier Reef in Australia had a giant bleaching event a few years ago. They have seen some recovery. They were surprised in some way. And they're probably doing exactly what you're doing here, which is taking fragments, growing the fragments, replacing the fragments. And one of the things I read was they're trying to find the corals that are most responsive or adaptive to the changes in conditions, because they're guessing a lot of this, but it makes sense that if the temperature goes up over time, then the corals get used to it. It's like human beings. If we exercise, we get muscles, right? And unfortunately, the water temperature has risen much faster than naturally supposed to. And it's causing this bleaching event. Are you finding corals that work better than others at adapt?
Yes. So the idea, like you said, is to find those individuals that can do better with conditions like that. For example, something we do with coral restoration is that we try to find those corals that have a certain type of genes that seem to be more resistant. Something that we witnessed during this coral bleaching event, for example, is that the corals in our coral nursery were affected by coral bleaching. They were fully white. But a couple of them seem to be doing a lot better. A couple of them had a little bit more color on them, and they also recover a lot quicker. So with coral restoration, we can witness and we can have an idea of which genes or which corals are the ones that are more resistant. And the idea is that once we identify those, we want to keep reproducing those so we can have stronger individuals, stronger corals in our reefs over time.
This is kind of not what you're doing, but I want to ask a question since you kind of opened the door. There's a lot of gene research right now on human beings and everything else. A friend of mine is a venture capitalist, and they're working on genetically creating natural solutions, for instance, to make paper without having to go through the paper process, or to make plastics that break down, that are biologically engineered. Is there genetic research being done to find ways to modify the corals so that they're stronger?
So far in Honduras, we're not doing that. I really hope we could one day. At this moment, we're mostly looking in terms of observation to which coral seems to have the best fitting genes, but we're not at that level yet. And I don't know if it's really possible. I cannot think of a place or a country that's doing that, for example. I think most coral restoration practitioners are trying to mostly stress corals on purpose. Like, for example, you put them on a lab and you play with different temperatures to see which ones are responding better. But I don't think we're at the point where we can change their genes or DNA, for example.
Well, it's really nice having you on. How can people help with the program at Roatan Marine Park?
Yes, you can visit our website. It's roatanmarinepark.org, and we have a different selection of things everyone can do. So, for example, if you own a business and you want to become a sponsor, we're an NGO and we're a nonprofit as well. Or if you're a tourist on the island that loves scuba diving and you want to volunteer with us directly, you can also do that. So you can visit our website to find all of these different things you can help us with. And also, if you're just coming to Roatan overall, just trying to be mindful of how to be a responsible visitor. We have different videos and posters on this, so you can have a better idea of how to, visit the island and live it better than you found it. But there's something for everyone, and I think everyone can contribute a little bit to this cause.
That's Michelle Cerrato, Research Coordinator, Roatan Marine Park, joining us today. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Keith.